John walked through the alien market, his eyes scanning the strange stalls and glowing signs. He wasn't looking to buy anything. He hated this place. It smelled of oil, fire, and something worse, fear. Creatures from many worlds were shouting, selling weapons, food, and even living beings. He almost turned back. But then, something stopped him. In a dark corner, behind rusty metal bars, sat a girl. She wasn't human. Her skin was soft blue, glowing slightly under the red market lights. Long silver hair fell across her face. She sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. Her golden eyes stared out, silent, empty, and tired. John felt a strange pull in his chest. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just looked at him. The seller noticed. A fat alien with oily skin and sharp teeth stepped closer. "Ah, human. You have good taste. This one is quiet, no trouble. Good companion. Very rare breed. 50 credits and she's yours." John looked again. Her arms had bruises. She had no shoes. Her clothes were torn. But she sat with a kind of pride even in chains. He asked, "Does she talk?" The seller laughed. "She can, but she doesn't. Not anymore. Too scared, I think." John stepped closer to the bars. The girl didn't move, but their eyes met. He whispered, "Do you want to leave?" She blinked once, slowly. Her lips didn't move, but her eyes, those silent golden eyes, seemed to whisper yes. John didn't think twice. "Here," he said, handing over the credits. The seller grinned. "Pleasure doing business." A loud click echoed as the lock opened. The girl didn't move until John reached out a hand. She flinched like she was expecting pain. He stepped back. "It's okay. I'm not like them." Slowly she stood. She was taller than he expected, graceful even in pain. She followed him without a word. Outside the market, the air was cooler. Stars blinked in the sky above the colony world. John led her to his small ship. He opened the ramp, let her inside, and closed the door behind them. Inside, she stood still, like a statue, like she didn't know what freedom meant. John turned on a soft light and opened a cabinet. He took out a blanket and offered it. She didn't take it. He placed it on the couch and said, "You can sit, rest, you're safe here." Still nothing. John sighed. "I'm John. I don't want anything from you. I saw you, and I couldn't leave you there." Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, cracked, and full of pain. "Are you going to hurt me too?" John froze. "No, never." She looked down. "That's what the last one said." John sat across from her, keeping his distance. "You don't belong in a cage, no one does." She tilted her head slightly, curious. "Then why did you buy me?" "To set you free." Silence. Then she whispered, "That doesn't make sense." John smiled gently. "You'll see." Later, that night, John cooked a simple meal. He placed a plate near her and left her alone. She stared at it for a long time. Then, like she was testing a trap, she slowly reached out and took a bite. She ate fast. Too fast. Like someone who hadn't eaten in days. She coughed, but kept eating. John watched from the doorway. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, she looked up. "Thank you." That was all she said. But it was enough. Before bed, John set up a soft bed in the spare room. He showed it to her. "This room is yours now." She didn't answer. She just looked at the bed like it was a dream. Something too good to be real. Later that night, John heard a sound, a soft knock on his door. He opened it and found her sitting on the floor outside, holding the blanket he gave her. "I don't know how to be free," she whispered. "I don't know what to do." John knelt beside her. "Then we'll learn, together." She looked up at him. For the first time, her golden eyes weren't empty. There was a spark, tiny but real. Hope. The ship's hum was low and steady as it cruised through the outer rim sectors of the colony grid. Inside, the girl sat quietly at the corner of the modest dining area, her golden eyes darting from object to object with subtle calculation. She was still learning what any of it meant. John prepared the meal with a mechanical efficiency. Rice, substitute, rehydrated vegetables, protein strips, nothing extravagant but warm and real. It was food meant for someone to feel nourished, not just fed. He set the plate in front of her without speaking, placing a glass of purified water next to it. Then deliberately, he stepped back and sat across the room. There was no command, no pressure. The message was clear. This is yours, not mine. She stared at the plate. The steam from the food curled into the air, a smell unfamiliar to her, but not unpleasant. Her hands moved with slow, cautious precision as she reached out. The first bite was tentative, the second slightly faster. By the third, she was consuming it with visible desperation, though still glancing up between mouthfuls, expecting the meal to be snatched away or punished. John watched without interrupting. Her behavior was not foreign to him. He had served in evacuation shelters during the Vega 3 refugee crisis. He had seen this before, beings who ate as though every meal might be their last. When she finally stopped, the plate empty, her breathing was a little heavier, but calmer. She looked up at him, the tension in her shoulders just slightly softened. "I've never eaten like that before," she said quietly, almost to herself. John leaned forward, folding his arms across the table. "That wasn't a meal. That was just the start." She furrowed her brow. "Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, "Do you have a name?" The silence stretched. For a moment, it seemed like she might refuse to answer. Then, "Ilara." He nodded slowly. "Ilara? That's a beautiful name." Her eyes narrowed slightly in suspicion. "Is this what companions are supposed to do? Eat and sit quietly?" John frowned. "You're not a companion. You're a person." She tilted her head, genuinely confused. "They never said that before." "You weren't with people," he replied. "You were with owners." The distinction hung heavy in the air. Over the next 2 days, the routine developed subtly. John maintained a distance, giving Ilara time to observe, to choose interaction on her terms. She began wandering the ship, first the dining area, then the corridor, then the cockpit where John often sat reviewing navigation charts. She started asking questions. Not many, but meaningful ones. What is this lever for? Why is your planet called Earth if it isn't all dirt? What does trust mean? Her questions were not idle curiosity. They were the probing inquiries of someone attempting to reconstruct reality from the ground up. One evening, she lingered at the cockpit door longer than usual. "I've been thinking," she said without invitation. "You didn't buy me to use me. You don't treat me like property, but still, you bought me." John didn't flinch at the accusation. "Yes, I did." "Why?" He considered carefully. "Because I saw someone who didn't belong in chains, and no one else was going to stop it." She nodded slowly, absorbing the answer, then turned to leave. But just before walking away, she added, "Thank you for the meal." Later that night, Ilara stood silently in the corridor, watching the stars blur past through the observation window. The vastness didn't frighten her anymore. She pressed one hand against the cold glass and whispered something in a language John couldn't understand. A quiet sentence to the void. In her own way, she was starting to believe she might not be alone. Ilara stood barefoot on the cold floor of the ship, staring at a mirror she had never looked into before. Her reflection startled her, not because of her alien features, blue skin, silver hair, golden eyes, but because for the first time, in her memory there was no chain around her neck, no collar, no brand. Just her. She reached out and touched the glass gently. "This is what I look like when I'm not owned," she whispered. In the next room, John was adjusting an old radio. It sputtered and hissed, then came to life with a soft tune, a slow, earthy human song from decades ago. Ilara followed the sound like a child chasing a scent. John looked up as she entered. "You okay?" "I heard music," she said. "Is that human language?" He smiled. "Kind of. It's called jazz. It's not about the words. It's about the feeling." She sat cross-legged on the floor, listening with narrowed eyes. "I don't understand. How can you hear a feeling?" "You don't hear it," he said. "You feel it in your chest, in your memories, sometimes in your bones." Ilara was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you have any music from your sadness?" That question caught him off guard. He pulled out an old playlist and let it play. The ship filled with a deep, haunting melody, one of loss, of missed chances, of longing. Ilara closed her eyes. "I know this," she whispered. Not the song, but the feeling. Over the next few days, she began copying his habits. She watched how he brushed his teeth, how he made tea, how he used sarcasm. At first it was imitation, but then it turned into curiosity. She mimicked his morning greeting one day, "Mornin', sleepyhead," and John nearly dropped his mug laughing. "Did I say it wrong?" she asked, tilting her head. "No," he chuckled. "You said it perfectly, it's just, I didn't expect it." She smiled, a real soft smile that lit her entire face. "I've been practicing." One morning John found her in the supply closet trying to fold laundry. It was a disaster. "You know," he said, picking up a mangled shirt. "You don't have to do that." Ilara looked frustrated. "I want to contribute, that's what companions are supposed to do, right?" He raised an eyebrow. "You're not my companion." Her voice dropped. "Then what am I?" John paused, then spoke gently. "You're Ilara, and you're free. You don't have to earn your right to exist." She looked down. "That's hard to believe." "I know," he said, "but you'll get there one step at a time." That night she cooked. Badly. The ship's kitchen was full of smoke and weird smells. Something green and bubbling had crawled out of the pot. John coughed and waved a towel in the air. "Are you trying to poison me?" "I followed your recipe," she said, offended. "That was a recipe for soup, not for alien swamp acid." They both laughed. Loud, real laughter. And in that moment, the ship didn't feel like a machine. It felt like home. Later, Ilara sat beside John, both of them watching stars through the viewport. She finally asked the question she'd been holding in her chest. Why do humans care so much about feelings? He thought about it. Because feelings are the only proof we're really alive. She looked up at him. Then I think I'm alive too. He smiled. Yeah, I think you are. It began with a knock. A slow, heavy knock at the ship's main door, sharp and cold like metal tapping against metal. Ilara froze in the hallway. The spoon she held clattered to the floor. John was already on his feet. No one knocks in spaceports, he said, walking to the door cautiously. Ilara's voice was barely a whisper. Is it them? John didn't ask who she meant. He already knew. He opened the door carefully, revealing 2 figures in dark red armor, galactic enforcement officers, tall, cold, unblinking. One stepped forward and held out a scanner. Citizen John Mercer? John nodded slowly. That's me. You are in violation of interstellar trade regulation. 1234C, illegal purchase and transport of an unregistered non-citizen companion. Behind him, Ilara gasped. The second officer added, You are instructed to hand over the subject immediately for return to legal ownership. John stepped between them and the doorway. She's not a subject. Her name is Ilara. The first officer didn't flinch. The registry does not recognize that name. She is catalogued as 42X, property of Vardock Consortium. John's voice hardened. She was bought from a slave pen. That's illegal under the Human Free Alliance Treaty. Treaty or not, the officer said. Possession of unauthorized life forms without proper documents is punishable. Alara peeked around John's arm. Her voice shook. Please, don't let them take me. The officer's scanner lit up. Found her. She's marked as escaped property. We'll be taking her now. John didn't move. Not without a warrant and not on my ship. Tension filled the air like thick smoke. Alara grabbed the edge of John's shirt, hiding behind him like a terrified child. The lead enforcer narrowed his eyes. You're interfering with galactic justice, human. John leaned forward. I'm protecting someone who was owned like cargo. Is that what your justice supports? For a second, even the officer didn't know what to say. After a long pause, the officers backed away. Fine. We'll report your resistance to Central Command. Expect a summons. You've made a mistake, Mercer. The door closed behind them with a hiss. Alara trembled. She sat on the floor, wrapping her arms around her knees, breathing fast. I thought they were going to take me. I thought it was all over. John knelt beside her. They didn't. They won't. Her voice cracked. But they can. I'm not even a citizen. To them, I'm still just, property. He touched her shoulder gently. You're not property. You're a person. And we'll prove it. That night, Alara didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She just sat by the window, watching the stars pass by. Finally, she spoke. I used to believe no one would ever protect me, that I wasn't worth it, but you stood there like a shield. John nodded. Because I believe in you. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Then maybe I can believe in me too. The next morning, John made a call. He contacted a legal advisor on Earth, an old friend from the military, someone who owed him a favor. We need to register her, John said. Make her a real person in the eyes of the law. His friend laughed nervously. John, you can't just make someone a citizen. There's a whole process. Documents, history, records. She doesn't have history, John said. But she has a future. And I'll fight for it. Back in the living quarters, Alara was reading a children's picture book John had found in storage. She looked up. Do humans always fight for what's right? John smiled. Not always, but the good ones do. She nodded. Then I want to be good too. The ship was quiet again. Not the tense, fearful silence that once filled its halls, but a softer, quiet, like the calm after a storm. In the center of the kitchen, Alara stood over a pot of boiling liquid, her tongue poking out in concentration as she read from a printed recipe. 3 pinches of salt, she muttered. Wait, is a pinch a human measurement? John peeked in from the hallway, grinning. It means exactly 1 moment before you add too much. She frowned. That's not helpful. That's cooking, he said, laughing. Alara rolled her eyes but smiled. A real smile. It had taken weeks, but something inside her had begun to thaw, like ice melting under sunlight. Lunch turned out edible. Almost. John coughed halfway through a spoonful of her strange, purple stew. Okay, it's not bad. Alara tilted her head. You're sweating. That's just flavor tears. You're lying. Definitely. She paused, watching him. So, you're pretending it's good to make me feel better? He nodded. It's a human survival skill. We call it manners. Alara sat back in her chair, and for the first time in her life, she laughed. It wasn't planned. It wasn't careful. It bubbled out of her like a song she had never known the words to. Light, pure, free. John froze. He had heard many sounds on this ship, alarms, engines, even sobs, but never this. When she finally stopped, she looked at him shyly. That was strange, John smiled. That was a laugh. You needed that. I didn't even know I could. The next day, Alara tried on different clothes from John's old closet. She picked a long brown jacket with sleeves too big for her and stood in front of the mirror, posing awkwardly. John chuckled. You look like an intergalactic detective. Raised a fake gun with her fingers. Freeze, space criminal. He burst out laughing. She liked the sound of that. His laugh. It made her feel like the world wasn't so heavy. I want to be part of your world, she said softly. Not just hide in it. So she started joining him on repairs. She helped fix wires, cleaned data pads, and even argued with the ship's grumpy AI. Error. Unauthorized user, the AI stated coldly. I live here now, she replied. So, update your files, Toaster. John choked on his drink. Toaster? You said it once, she replied proudly. I remember. One evening, as stars stretched across the viewport, Alara sat beside John with a sketch pad. I want to draw how I see things, she said. Need help? No. I want it to be my view. My way. She drew the stars first, then the ship, then herself. In her drawing, she wasn't in a cage. She was holding hands with a human standing free. She looked up. Do you think others like me can feel happy too? John nodded. I think you're proof that they can. Later that night, as they shared hot drinks and listened to soft earth music, Alara said something unexpected. I don't remember my real family, but I think if I had a brother, he'd be like you. John was quiet for a moment. That means a lot, he said. But you don't have to fit into my world. You can make your own. She looked at him. Can I have both? He nodded. Absolutely. Outside, the stars kept spinning. But inside, a girl who once only knew chains was now learning how to smile and laugh and live. John was repairing the ship's rear thrusters when the emergency alert blared. Incoming transmission. Priority level red. He wiped the grease from his hands and rushed to the console. The message wasn't long, but every word burned through him. Subject 42X has been tracked to Dock Sector 14. Immediate retrieval authorized by Vardock Consortium. Any resistance will be met with force. Alara stood behind him silently, her hand trembling as she read over his shoulder. They found me, she whispered. John turned to her, calm but firm. We knew this might happen. Her golden eyes filled with fear. They'll take me back. Chain me again. Break me. He stepped closer. No. I won't let that happen. But the truth weighed heavy on both of them. Vardock bounty hunters weren't like the enforcers. They didn't care about laws. They came with collars, weapons, and cruel smiles, and they never left without their property. We need to run, Alara said. We can hide. I don't care where. But John didn't move. For the first time since she had known him, his voice dropped into something steel-hard. I'm tired of running. She blinked. What? You said you want to belong, to live free. Hiding isn't freedom, Alara. It's just a different kind of cage. She clenched her fists. Then what do we do? John looked her in the eyes. We fight, not with weapons, with truth. He contacted a legal representative on Earth's Alliance Council, a woman named Dr. Miriam. Halsey appeared on the screen, a stern but kind-looking human rights advocate. John spoke quickly. We have a situation. An alien girl previously enslaved by the Vardock Consortium is being hunted. She's here with me. I need emergency protective status. Dr. Halsey narrowed her eyes. Is this about 42X? She's not a number. Her name is Alara. There was a pause, then the woman nodded. Send me everything, record her testimony, we'll bring it to the Galactic Court. Alara's voice cracked. Will they listen? Dr. Halsey replied. If they don't, I'll make them. That night, John recorded Alara as she spoke into the camera. She told them everything. About the cages, the beatings, the owners. The way they erased her name, her identity, her hope. I wasn't a person to them, she said, voice shaking. I was an object, a thing to use, to trade, to hurt. John watched her from behind the camera. She was scared, but not weak. She was choosing to stand, after years of being kept down. I don't want revenge, she continued. I want to be free. I want to live a life where I laugh, where I learn, where I matter. By morning, the message had gone. Viral, not just to the court but across human and alien networks. Her voice, her truth was spreading. Support flooded in. Refugee advocates, journalists, even politicians, but so did threats. The Vardock Consortium responded quickly. This human has stolen consortium property. We demand her return within 24 galactic hours, or there will be consequences. John didn't flinch. Instead, he packed the ship, not to flee, but to fly straight to the court planet. Before departure, Ilara stood by the window, watching the stars. "Are we doing the right thing?" she asked. John nodded. "The hardest roads are usually the right ones." She looked at him, her eyes steadier than ever. "Then I'm ready. Let them try to take me. I won't go back without a voice." As the engines roared to life and the stars stretched into lines, Ilara reached out and held John's hand, not out of fear, out of courage. The court chamber was nothing like Ilara imagined. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't cold. It wasn't a cage. It was bright, with clear windows and quiet air. The galactic tribunal stood above them. 3 alien judges, 1 human, 1 from a water world, 1 from a crystalline species. They glowed in calm blue light. Ilara stood at the center of it all. No chains, no collar, no fear. She wore simple clothes, nothing fancy, but she stood taller than she ever had in her life. Her voice was steady. "My name is Ilara," she said. Silence filled the chamber. "I was once called 42X, a number, a product. For as long as I remember, I lived in darkness. I didn't know kindness, I didn't know laughter, I didn't even know what it meant to sleep without fear." The human judge leaned forward. "And now?" Ilara looked at John, seated behind her. He gave her a small, proud nod. "Now," she said, "I know what it means to be free, because someone, a human, didn't see me as a thing. He saw me as me." The Vardock Consortium's representative hissed from the far side. "She was purchased. We have records. She belongs to us." Ilara turned to him. "I don't belong to anyone. I never did. You didn't buy me. You stole my life. And now I'm taking it back." The court went silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the crystalline judge stood and spoke in ringing tones. "Freedom I cannot be owned." She turned to Ilara. "You are hereby granted full galactic citizenship protected under the Refugee Rights Act. Your identity, your name, and your future are yours alone." The gavel came down with a soft chime. It was done. Ilara didn't cry. She didn't collapse. She just stood there, taller than ever, stronger than she ever believed she could be. She turned to John and smiled. Back on the ship, days later, life was calm again. But it wasn't the same. Ilara decorated her room with strange plants from her homeworld. She'd found them in a trade station database and ordered the seeds. She placed one on John's shelf, too. "This one grows even in darkness," she said. Like me. They shared meals, music, and jokes. John taught her how to fly small segments of the ship. She taught him alien lullabies from broken memories, but the best moment came one quiet evening. They sat outside the ship on a landing pad watching twin moons rise. John asked, "So, what now?" Ilara sipped her tea and smiled. "I think I'll stay." "You don't have to." "I know. That's why it means something." She looked up at the stars. "All my life I waited for someone to save me. But what I didn't know was I had to save myself too. You just gave me the space to do it." John smiled. "You saved me too, you know. I was alone before you came." She nudged him playfully. "Then I guess we both got lucky." A soft laugh escaped her lips. It wasn't nervous. It wasn't careful. It was full, whole, happy, truly happy.